Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Jessica at Itchesino on Twitter. You can follow me there. And this is the third episode of the WeShow Euro 2020 on the WeShow Football YouTube channel. The first round of the group stage matches are done. And with the help of Rob, who will be here in just a moment, and David, of course, we're going to be picking our best performances of the round as well as our most disappointing performances. So make sure that you also follow Rob at Rob Harris and David Gerges at David Gerges 86 on Twitter. So we're going to get into the matches in just a second, but we just want to just do a brief acknowledgement for Christian Erickson. We all know about the scary incident that happened with Christian in their match, Denmark's match against Finland. And there's welcome news that Christian Erickson is alive and recovering in hospital from his horrifying on-pitch cardiac arrest during their match. Rob and David can give their thoughts, but we want to avoid the ongoing debates of TV coverage and whether the match should have gone ahead at all and get on with the football. So, David, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think ultimately, Jessica, you're right. With everybody in the footballing world and the wider community is just really just so relieved that Christian is stable now. I mean, he put that message out on Twitter just to say that he's okay. He's undergoing a lot of checks, and we hope that he'll be back in some capacity as soon as possible. Really, I think it was just really, really sad to see him. Just there was nobody around him really when he just fell to the ground. A lot of praise has got to be rightly given to the referee, Anthony Taylor, and to the medics who, under such difficult circumstances, really were so quick and rapid with their assessment of the situation and, did everything they could to revive Christian. And thankfully, he is in a much better place now.
100%. I couldn't say it any better. Our thoughts and everything are with Christian Erickson. And with that, we're just going to move on to the football. So we're going to do our choices, or we're going to give our choices for 3 different categories from the first round of games. So we're going to be talking about the team of the round, the player of the round, and the disappointment of the round. And hopefully we get some differing opinions because that's what makes it interesting, right? Because football is all about opinions. So let's start off with team of the round. I'm actually going to let David go first. So who was your team of the round?
I'm going to go for Belgium. A lot was made of them before the tournament as one of the favourites. This is their golden generation. You think the likes of Lukaku, of Kevin De Bruyne, of Eden Hazard. You think of Martinez, this team that all these players seem to be at the right age. They are the most experienced side in the tournament as well. So a lot was obviously made of them as one of the favourites to win this tournament. It is their golden generation. And to win your opening game 3-0, you can't ask for more, really. So very impressed with them so far and excited to see what they'll do in the following matches.
Yeah, and we have to think about not having Kevin De Bruyne, not having Witsel, key players that would make that team even better. So if they can get those 2 players, going within the tournament, they could go far. And as you've already said, this is their golden generation. They got to get it done. They have to get something out of this. And the way that Lukaku played, I hope for them because I don't know what's coming behind them, but this generation definitely could do something. So I agree that they had a really good performance. And I mean, they're going to make it interesting, I think, because a lot of people had kind of written them off a little bit, but I think they're going to make it interesting.
And you think Eden Hazard also just came off the bench as well in the game. So you think if he begins to show the form that we know he can deliver, really, and with De Bruyne coming back, as you say, I mean, if you're Romelu Lukaku, you can't be more excited to have those 2 players at the height of their powers for the rest of the tournament.
Exactly, 100%. So just moving on to my team performance. What is it? My best team of the round, whatever, you guys. I'm just waking up, so give me a second. But I'm actually going to go with Italy. And a lot of people were talking about them as dark horses. And I just look at the quality and the depth of the squad. And I'm thinking not really dark horses, but maybe a team that can go far that doesn't have all of the hype around them like France and Portugal and these teams do. And I watched them perform and the possession was so good. Slick, nice 1-2 touch passing. Jorginho, somebody who gets a lot of criticism for Chelsea. For me, undue criticism. I think he's a real quality player. If you're watching it, he's very good. And he was orchestrating everything in that midfield. Their passing was so good. Insigne was great. Berardi, I thought, was a little bit blunt, but had a lot of threat with him. And once they scored, well, it was an own goal from Turkey. The floodgates opened, and I just saw a team that, if they get stronger throughout the tournament, can really make a good run and maybe potentially win it. I don't know what you think about Italy, but I was very, very impressed with them in that first game against Turkey.
I think it's twofold for me, really. First of all, I mean, we've seen so many teams in the Euros at the World Cup have a wonderful qualifying campaign, and then as soon as the tournament gets going, it just doesn't match up with what we've seen in the past. And with Italy, they just seem to have carried on that form from qualifying straight into the tournament, and I think there's something to be said for that. Momentum is such a big thing in these tournaments, 7 matches, and to win so comfortably, really, in that first game, I think only bodes well for them. And also, Turkey were, for many people, a dark horse in this tournament, and I think that would have probably played on the Italians' minds a bit, to be fair, and they just blew Turkey away, really. So. Very, very impressed with Italy, yes. And yeah, I can't see them not topping that group, in all honesty.
Yeah, they have such a good mix of experience and youth, which is really, really nice. 2 center backs that are really, really experienced and know what they're doing. And then you have the mix of like Locatelli and Barella, like new faces in this Italy side that are going to push them forward. So I'm really excited to see what they do. I didn't have a good gauge on them before, but now I'm like, wow, they really could do something. So yeah. So now we kind of want to talk about, and just to let you guys know, Rob is in a press conference. He's doing his thing. So whenever we get him in, we'll add him in, but we'll just go ahead and move on with David and I's choices. So player of the round, who do you have?
Well, it would be very easy to go for Cristiano Ronaldo. 2 goals that now makes him the top goal scorer at the Euros with 11. He's now eclipsed Michel Platini, who has 9. And also added to that, he's now the only player that's ever played at 5 Euros. So it would be very easy, and rightly so, to pick someone like Cristiano, given those 2 goals against Hungary. But I think I'm going to have to go for Paul Pogba after watching him last night excel for France against Germany. I thought he was just so assured in the middle, unlike the Paul Pogba that we see at Manchester United. And you could just see him really controlling the game, moving forward so well, so gracefully. I thought he was outstanding for France yesterday. And I just think with France, a lot of the praise rightly goes to the man of the moment, N'Golo Kante, that trident up front, Griezmann, Mbappe and Benzema. Nobody was really speaking about Pogba before the tournament. I just thought he just excelled for me yesterday. And we're seeing that clip of his assist for the assist, really, the pre-assist, as they call it, for Hernandez to square it across, and Hummels unfortunately put it through his own net. But that pass was just exquisite. And I think if I was a Manchester United fan, I'd be a bit frustrated, really, seeing Pogba play like that for France. And I don't feel as though he's done that enough for Manchester United. But again, yeah, he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, some players I think just need different. They need support. I think Pogba has world-class ability, and he shows it for France often. But when you have a player like N'Golo Kante that just allows you to, do your thing because you have the support behind you, I think it just gives Pogba that platform that he probably doesn't have at Manchester United. But to me, like, that midfield performance that he had just shows you why people believe that he's world class. And whether you think he is or not, that's up to you. But he's a special player, and he showed it, and I'm glad he did, because he gets so much criticism. And when he's able to show it, then we kind of live another day without Pogba, slander and things like that. So I do think that he played really well yesterday. And he also, the pass for Mbappe that was just offside, was also a really beautiful pass. Like, I don't think we have a clip of that one, but I know it was offside, but he could have passed it to Benzema, but he knew to pass it to Mbappe. And
minimally offside as well, we should add.
it was the knee offside. And I was like, wow, if he had not been offside, if Mbappe had not been offside, I mean, we're talking about like 3 world-class passes in like one game, and that might not seem like a lot, but it is. Most players like don't even get one really nice pass in a game. So I thought he was so super good. So yeah, and for me, I'm gonna go with Romelu Lukaku. You had already spoken about Belgium as your team of the round, and I think Lukaku, for me, it's not just about what he did in that game. It's about his progression over the last couple of years. Had a maybe difficult spotty time in England, and then went to Inter and is rehabilitated his career. Still only 28 years old or something like that. So he still has very far to go. But the goals that he scored, that he's so unstoppable. His physical build, and then what he's been able to do to increase his agility, his speed, and his skills make him so difficult to mark. And you could just tell that they could not handle him. 2 goals on the day. And after, Christian Erickson having his scary moment, to have a performance like that and dedicate your goals to him, I thought that was just a really nice moment. So I have to give it to Romelu Lukaku, and I would hate to be the next defender seeing him run at you in the next game.
I think it must have been very hard for him with having seen what happened to Christian Erickson. He said as well that he spent the whole day crying, really. So you think to then come out and lead the Belgium attack in that way, there is a lot of pressure on Belgium, and rightly so. It's a wonderful side, as we've said before. But to have that going on and to still be able to come out on the field, score 2 goals and deliver that sort of performance, it does bode well for Belgium, I think, if Lukaku continues to show the form that he has shown this year at Inter Milan.
Exactly, 100%. So let's move on to the disappointment of the round. There's always, a team, a coach, a player that just lets you down, so we'll go ahead and go on with those. So David, who do you have for your disappointment of the round?
I was tossing up really between Scotland and Spain, and I could probably talk a bit about both, but I'm going to go for Spain really, simply because they dominated that game against Sweden. They had 17 shots, failed to score, and that was their highest number of shots in either a European Championship or a World Cup game. For them to not score a goal, I think was very disappointing, despite the fact that they had all the possession in the game. But real glaring chances for Dani Olmo, Koke, Morata as well. Morata so much so that when he left the field, he was jeered off the field. So I don't think it was a good performance by Spain in that sense, really, and puts a bit of pressure, well, a lot of pressure really on them to win their next match.
A lot of questions about whose team is this and who's going to lead them forward from the front. And watching Morata do Morata things, I mean, it's not like we haven't seen this from him before. Just leaves you wanting a little bit, like, where are they going to get these goals from? I mean, possession is great, but if you can't convert that into goals, and really in tournaments like this, possession is important, but we all know that you can have 90% possession and then get done by a dodgy call or something like that. So they need to figure out different ways of scoring, and I'm just not seeing it. I'm really not seeing it. So I do agree with you that they were a little bit of a disappointment, but not necessarily. I didn't have high expectations from them anyway, because I knew that they didn't have the striker. You got to have somebody that can put the ball in the back of the net,
Yeah, and you're right to mention the possession thing as well, because, I mean, we saw yesterday with France and Germany. France was so comfortable to just let Germany have the ball. And Germany, for all their possession, I mean, for me, I never really thought as though they were going to score a goal, and France just played to their strengths on the counter-attack. So, yeah, I mean, for all that possession that Spain did have, if you're not able to put the ball in the back of the net, sadly, you're not really going to go far. So I think Luis Enrique has a lot of questions to figure, more questions than answers, really, ahead of his selection for the next game.
Before we move away from Spain just for a second, I just wanted to ask you about how you felt about Luis Enrique choosing somebody like Pedri to start that game instead of somebody like Thiago with so much experience. Did you view maybe his choices for a starting lineup as something that maybe hindered them? Maybe they need a little bit more experience, considering that they also don't have Sergio Ramos in there to lead them?
I mean, I wasn't surprised really with his starting lineup, and I wasn't surprised that Ramos wasn't chosen in the squad. I mean, if you look at the way England have taken Jordan Henderson and Harry Maguire, two players that aren't fit, to the squad for their leadership skills, they don't really strike me as disruptive figures in that sense. And I think there are a few questions about Sergio Ramos, and because of the fact that he is clearly the most experienced player in the Spanish national side, I think Luis Enrique might have had a few fears really as to whether or not he can control Ramos's leadership, if you like. So I wasn't surprised that Ramos was left out, nor was I surprised by the starting lineup. I just think in the next game he's going to probably have to start Pedri. I can't see Pedri not starting the next game. I thought he was very impressive. And we'll see whether or not Morata starts the game. I think Moreno from Villarreal did very well when he came on as well. And he's obviously had an excellent season for club. Villarreal obviously won the Europa League. So I think possibly I can see Moreno starting the next game. But it's a big call to drop Morata now. I mean, for his confidence really after that performance, dropping him from the starting lineup is going to really, really send a few messages.
Yeah, I think, that's going to be a huge call. And maybe you start Morata and you see how it goes, because definitely if you take him out now, we're talking about maybe a confidence, deteriorating, and then you can't rely on him later on. And for Spain, for me, they lack a little bit of dynamism to me. They lack a little bit of players that can take you on one-on-one and just beat you and make things happen. And that's where somebody like an Ansu Fati, I think, would have came in really nicely into the side, obviously injured and hoping for the best. I think he's coming back now, but they just lack a little bit of something. And I'm not sure if it exists within their squad. I think it's something that will need to be fixed over the next couple of years, because they're obviously going through an in-between time similar to Germany. So we'll see what happens, but they definitely were a little bit disappointing. I have to agree with that. So let's go on to my choice. Hate to be a little bit controversial, but I got to throw something in there. And for me, the biggest disappointment was Portugal. And probably thinking, big call, I know, but they're also one of the teams that I still think are going to go really far in this tournament. But I mean, 3-0, yeah, it looks good. Especially you seeing all the celebrations and all this kind of stuff. But we can also say that from minute 1 to minute 85, it wasn't this. It wasn't the celebration that you see. It was a lot of pins, like sitting on pins and needles, kind of feeling like, are they going to get it over the line? At a certain point, I was thinking they don't look like scoring to me, because their attacks were dying from just wayward passes. They looked a little slow, maybe a little bit taken aback by the amount of people in the stadium. I know there was a lot of Hungary supporters and they were quite loud. And then the Hungary team was hungry. They were really working hard. And so watching Portugal struggle to break this team down and look relatively blunt until a lucky-ish goal towards the very end. And then obviously the goals came after that. I'm thinking to myself, what are you going to do against Germany? You saw France not even get out of first gear against Germany. They didn't. They weren't even in first gear. So I'm thinking to myself, is Portugal going to struggle against Germany? They're obviously going to have a tough time against France. So they just disappointed me really from minute 1 to 85. And because I just didn't think it was a great performance overall, and they looked overly defensive, a little bit stiff. I just think there needs to be some maneuvering, but I know their coach tends to be very pragmatic, and I don't know if that's going to get them over the line in this tournament. So they disappointed me. They really did. Obviously, that's probably controversial because they won 3-0. It is what it is, but they can't do that again against another team. We're looking at, they could end up lower in the group than they probably want to be if they continue to perform like that.
I think what was impressive for Portugal, though, was the fact that they were able to bring on, Andre Silva up front, Rafa Silva, who I thought was superb and obviously created the goal for Cristiano right at the very end. So they have some players that can come off the bench and make an impact for them. So they might impress you in the following game, but I think this tournament you're going to need your bench, and the fact that you can make 5 substitutions. And Portugal can bring on players of that quality.
Yeah, that's very true.
Optimistic for them.
Yeah, I do think the substitutions are going to give them something if the coach is able to utilize them properly. it's just all about making sure that you're making the right decisions at the right times. I think it was just he's a little bit slow to react, but they got it over the line, and it is what it is. But it was a warning. It really was a warning. I could have, even Hungary looked like they could have scored a goal. They could have just nicked it, so they just have to be careful. But they're my disappointment mostly because of expectations. When I watched the way France played, I'm thinking you need to be up there with them, performing as they did, really confident. And I expect this Portugal team to do something similar. So that's the only reason why I really chose them. But do you want to choose another one? You had mentioned something off air a little bit about Scotland.
Yeah, I thought Scotland, there was a lot of clamour about them, their first Euro since 1996, playing at Hampden Park in front of the home crowd, of course. And to lose 2-0, I think, was just a massive disappointment for Steve Clarke and his side. They've obviously got England next, and if they don't win that game, I don't see how they'll advance beyond the group stage. So very disappointing for them. And then, of course, Patrick Schick. I mean, what can we really say about not only the first goal, but the second goal from just inside the halfway line was just, I mean, for me, it's going to be very hard to top that in terms of goal of the tournament, really.
Yeah, they didn't look great. And I expected them to do better, like you said. Like, they just needed something. And, obviously, I think they're missing Tierney. I think they're missing something else. But not only just that, it's Andy Robertson is very isolated on that left-hand side. They didn't have much going on the other side. And it was just like very, very dull, they weren't very clinical. And I'm just not really sure where they're going to get that next level from. Playing against England, my only hope for that game, if we could just kind of move on to previews a little bit, because Scotland versus England is one of our previews for the next round, is maybe they will get a little bit, they'll be galvanized by the occasion and the fact that this is a rivalry. There's going to be a lot of, hopefully, tackling and a lot of energy just based on the fact that these two teams are going to have that history behind them. So maybe that will give them a little bit of something. But looking at England, who also had a very good, not in terms of like clinical finishing and stuff, but a very controlled, confident, adult performance from a team that I don't think people were necessarily expecting that from. I think they will struggle if they don't get something. It's not going to come from the players. I don't think they're going to have better players to show up, but they need to have something to pull them through. And maybe it'll be the competitive factor of playing against England. What do you think?
I think for Scotland, really, Steve Clarke was quite coy on Tierney and whether or not he's going to play the next game. But I think they really do need him back. Like you said, he combines so well with Andy Robertson. And when he goes on the outside, you often see Robertson come inside and play almost like an unorthodox midfielder at times for Scotland. So I think if they can get him back, that's a big advantage. And I think Che Adams probably needs to start the next game for Scotland now. They need to do something different up front if they are going to, take advantage of England's defence that may or may not be as good as people think it is. So, yeah, I think Scotland really have to make changes for that game. And for England, I think there has been a bit of talk in the last couple of days about Harry Kane. He really flew under the radar for me in that opening game. Came deep often to get the ball as he does for Spurs, but I think he has an important game, and it wouldn't surprise me really if Harry Kane's the match winner. He's just so often, when questions have been asked of him at Spurs, particularly at the beginning, often produced wonderful performances and goals when Spurs really needed them. So I think it's a big game for Harry Kane, but it wouldn't surprise me if he scores a couple of goals for England.
Yeah, I think you just have to keep him on and just hope that the players around him can feed him the ball. I don't really think it was Harry Kane's problem or anything like that. I just think England was struggling just a little bit to create chances. They were going off of like the left-hand side a lot and the Sterling side a lot and not really through the middle. So if they could just find a way to get him the ball, I'm sure it'll be fine. He comes deep naturally for Tottenham. So it wasn't like, oh, he's fishing for the ball. That's just naturally what he would do anyway. And, I think England just has to be clinical. They just have to be clinical. And I was a little bit critical of Sterling in that match, just because I felt like he needed end product. And then obviously he had that end product at the end of that game. And I think he needed that. I think he needed that badly. I think he's searching for confidence. He's searching for a little glimmer of hope. He had a pretty disappointing season with Manchester City this season. So he needs something. And then after he got that goal, he was really good defensively. You could tell that he just needed that. And there was a lot of questions of whether he should be in the side, whether he should be starting. And I think he did prove that he was the right selection, especially with a lot of people calling for Grealish. So this team really did impress me. I would expect them to beat Scotland. But again, it's an occasion where sometimes when it's rivalries, teams that are players that have played against each other at a club level, you get that little bit of an unknown factor. And for me, because I don't really have a horse in the race, I'm hoping for a little bit of chaos in this game, but I would expect England to win this.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Southgate made some excellent calls in that game. I think he got most of them right, to be honest. I think Sterling starting was obviously the right call. I think Trippier at left back was a big call when you think that England have got two natural left-sided defenders there in Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell. So to start a right-footed player at left back is a big call when you think that Chilwell has just won the Champions League for Chelsea and Shaw's had an excellent season for Man United. But he got that call right. I thought Calvin Phillips in central midfield was, for me, the man of the match. I just thought he played such an excellent game in a position that we've not ever seen him really play at Leeds this season, in far more advanced than Declan Rice moving forward. Obviously laid on Sterling for the goal. So I think Southgate got all his selection headaches, if you like, spot on. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he starts with the same team for the next game. I think Foden at the start of the game did okay, but really drifted out of it for me. So there might be question marks over whether or not he starts the next game. But it'll be a very, very, very exciting game for me, and we'll see what happens, really.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for that game, 100%. So the next game that we're going to preview is Portugal versus Germany, which should be a blockbuster. It really, really should. But I think similar to the France-Germany game, it'll be a little bit edgy. It'll be a little, under the surface, because good teams I don't think it's going to be like a free-flowing. It's going to be like, let's see what the other person has. And we've already seen Portugal play once. We've already seen Germany play once. We've already kind of talked about Portugal, the depth of the squad. They're good. Maybe just need to just tighten up a little bit. That was my main thing for them. But Germany, a lot of quality, but looked very blunt up top against France. What are your thoughts about this game and how it might play out?
I thought, yeah, as you say, I mean, that was the main point that I took away from the game. Just offensively up front, they just didn't look like scoring for me for all that possession that they had, and France happily let them have the ball. Every time Kimmich crossed the ball, you just thought there was no one there, really. I mean, at some points you had Goossens from left back getting into the box to try and score a header, and you're thinking, if you're relying on your left back to get on the end of crosses, I mean, it doesn't bode well. So I think Jogi Löw has some really difficult choices to make there. And the other thing for me is they only moved to that 3 at the back in the last 2 warm-up games, so they've been playing 4-4-2 or 4 at the back, really. And then to go with 3 at the back, I'm wondering whether or not he'll do that again, because if you think that Ronaldo is really the focal point in attack for Portugal, do you need 3 centre-backs when you're going up against 1 centre-forward? I'm not 100% certain about that, even more so when you think Ronaldo's never going to really run in behind. You're not going to put him through and he's going to clear the last man. So I'd be interested to see if he sticks with 3 at the back, because I think Germany, they have to win that game, really. So I think I'm expecting changes, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when I was kind of thinking, what could they do up top for Germany? And Mueller, Havertz, Gnabry, as good as those players are, it lacks chemistry. It lacks something. The combination is just not there. It doesn't feel like a partnership or a group that's going to be scoring a lot of goals. Mueller is not a natural center forward, neither is Gnabry, and neither is Havertz. So they don't really have a focal point And I think
And you think
that's a
when
little
Gnabry,
worrisome.
yeah, and you're right with Gnabry as well. You think his strength is really isolating himself one-on-one with the fullback, getting ahead of the fullback. And how many times do we see him cross the ball for Lewandowski to score with Bayern? Kai Havertz, I think, is an excellent link-up player, like you say, and Muller too. Really, none of them are orthodox centre forwards. So I think it's going to be difficult for Germany really to try and solve that conundrum.
Yeah, I mean, and then even like Sané didn't look great when he came on to me. Like he's a player that's immensely talented, but just seems a little bit, maybe not as sharp as he should be. They brought in Volland, somebody who was playing off of the left, but I could have sworn he played more centrally. So it seems like square pegs in round holes. Nothing really works very well. And one thing that did work for them is getting Kimmich more central in that second half of that game against France. So maybe they could work out something if they have another right back to play him centrally with Cruz just as midfield to get a little bit more centrality or something, because they just looked off, and they do have quality, but I would bet Portugal to win this game. I really, really would. I just can't see it. I'm trying to figure out a way to see it, but I don't. Unless Portugal does something, like a madness, but I don't know. Do you think Portugal's going to win it?
I think Portugal will win. Yeah, I think just defensively they're so strong, really, and I don't think Ruben Diaz, I don't think Pepe, I don't think the fullbacks will really be worried too much about Germany. I would be amazed if we are sat here next week talking about a comfortable Germany victory. So I don't think there was anything there. And you mentioned Kevin Volland, and I thought that was just a bizarre move. I mean, he came on and played some sort of hybrid left wing back, left wing midfield role, and I just thought that was quite bizarre for someone who's scored a lot of goals for Monaco this season, and he was playing in an awful position and didn't really play that well. And then they obviously also brought Timo Werner on, so I think
I forgot about him.
Yeah, I think he needs to start the next game for Germany. I think if they're going to score goals, I mean, you kind of expect them to go through him. So I would be surprised if he doesn't start the next game.
Yeah, for sure. And man, he needs some confidence as well. I just think the whole team looks void of confidence. So, I mean, hopefully they could rally. They have enough leaders in that team: Hummels, Neuer, Mueller, Kimmich, Cruz. They should be able to galvanize this team and get something out of it. I would hope so. But yeah, so those are the games that we were going to preview. I think we've gone through it. So, I mean, again, I'm excited for this second round. We weren't able to get Rob on, but he was busy in his press conference, so hopefully we'll be able to get him on for the next one. And that's it from me. You can follow me on Twitter at It's Justino. And thank you, David, for being on today. You can find David at David Gerges 86. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll have another episode for you on Sunday, the 20th of June, reviewing all of the latest action and goals from Euro 2020. So see you guys next time. Bye.